Okay, yo, what is up, guys? It's Bryce. I just had to start this recording over because I realized I wasn't recording on my Yeti microphone. I was recording on the webcam speed, like the webcam mic that comes with my computer, so you could barely even hear me, especially because my computer is like not close to me. So let's go ahead and start. Read the title of the video. This is my 2017-2018 Western Conference predictions, basically who I think is making the playoffs, who I think isn't. And let's go ahead and start off with number 8. Who is going to make that 8th seed? Who is going to make that push at the end of the year to get that 8th seed? And that's going to be none other than the Sacramento Kings. And first of all, I think this would be kind of ironic and kind of funny if they made it their first year without DeMarcus Cousins. If you don't know, DeMarcus Cousins is their star player. They traded for Tyreek Evans, Buddy Hield, and a pick, maybe. I don't know what they like. Not a lot. Tyreek Evans, Buddy Hield were in it. Other than that, not a lot. Buddy Hield, good young shooter. Tyreek Evans, crazy rookie year, has just been declining, but I still like Tyreek Evans as a player. I probably wouldn't necessarily pick him up, but I still think one day maybe he will show that potential, or he will kind of live up to that potential he showed in his rookie year when he averaged like 25-5. Like, he had a monstrous rookie year. He was a rookie of the year, 2012 I think it was. But let's go ahead and talk about their lineup. First of all, their offseason moves. I just want to say they have surprised me more than anybody else, including the Oklahoma City Thunder, who traded for Paul George, Sabonis and Oladipo, which was absolutely insane. The craziest, or at least trade, but I think they have made even better moves. They signed George Hill, which is going to be a great veteran. Okay, the thing is, they have a young team. They have a young team who's developing. They will be good, but they were missing out on veterans. And what did they do? They signed Zach Randolph, who's basically a low post monster who can score basically whenever he wants. He's obviously a little bit older, but he would be a great mentor for Harry Giles, who they drafted. And then they signed George Hill, who, hey, sorry about that, guys. I was sitting on my wire for the Xbox, and I guess my ass unplugged it, so I was already on like my 6th seed. Let's go ahead and they signed George. I'm just gonna give a quick overview. I have no idea where I wasn't talking. Basically, Kings, good young roster. They signed George Hill and Zach Randolph, two good veterans for their younger players. I think Willie Cauley-Stein's really good. He's kind of like, he hasn't really proved himself yet, but I think he can be really good, at least defensively. De'Aaron Fox, he's going to be a beast. I don't care what people say about his three-point shot. Harry Giles, whatever you want to say. He's going to be a beast. Buddy Hield, he's, okay. Justin Jackson, don't know much about him, but he's young and he was picked 10th overall, so he has to be pretty good. I just think they have a good young team who, with those veterans that they sign, can make it to the playoffs and probably do a lot better within the coming years. I think the Kings are actually going to be a team to look out for, and I think it's going to be funny if they make it without DeMarcus Cousins. Let's go ahead and go on to number 7. They went 51-31 last year. It is the Utah Jazz, and the Utah Jazz have made major moves this offseason, as in they lost George Hill and they lost Gordon Hayward. Major moves, not in the right direction, but I still think they're good enough to squeeze into the playoffs, and I think part of that is just because of how good Rudy Gobert has really shown to be. He's an elite shot blocker, and I think he's going to, if he can kind of take on more of the offensive presence now that George Hill and Gordon Hayward, which are probably their 1 and 2 options last year, are gone. I think him and, like Joe Ingles, Rodney Hood, those sort of people. Oh, Derek Favors, that's a big thing. I'm pretty sure he was hurt last year, so if he comes back, that's he's a good low post scorer. And they got Ricky Rubio, who I guess will be their starting point guard. He's a player. Maybe this is the team he fits on. I think that was his issue with the Timberwolves. He wasn't a bad player. It's just, the way he plays is just kind of outdated. If you basically now in the NBA, if you don't shoot threes, you're not a real player. And I hate that, but Ricky Rubio, the pass first style, leave him absolutely wide open. 10 assists a game. It just hasn't really worked for him, but I think it might end up working for the Jazz. I think they'll slide in there, 7th seed. Definitely better than the Pelicans. I don't think the Pelicans are making the playoffs, if you catch my drift. And I think they might not have Anthony Davis or DeMarcus Cousins by the end of the year. I don't see them trading Anthony Davis, but honestly, they need to go into full rebuild mode because they have absolutely nobody around them, around Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins. But let's go ahead and talk about my number 6 team. My number 6 team, actually, I'm switching this right now. You know what? Screw what I said before. Number 16, Houston Rockets. Just switch them with the team I had at 6, put them at 5. You know what? I'm going to be crazy. Houston Rockets, number 6. Basically, they traded a bunch of stuff for Chris Paul. Oh, well, who cares? Now you have Chris Paul. People say, are Chris Paul and James Harden going to be able to play together? Yes, they are. One of them will stand at the three-point line and spot up. There'll be a lot of pick and rolls. And people say, that's wasting their potential, having one spot up. But it's not going to be one person's carrying the offense 100% of the time. The thing is, they may come down the court, and Chris Paul will be taking the ball up and, catch a screen, pull up, drive in, kick out, that sort of thing. And then the next play, James Harden may do the same thing. And the thing is, if you add this in, James Harden being the primary ball handler 100% of the time, and now it's going down to 50%, 60%, he's going to be a whole lot less tired. And he's not going to have the whole offense on his back. And he's going to be able to, take a break and spot up a possession or two every once in a while. And that's something that's good. I don't care what you say. Having a good second option is good. And a play where he's standing on the three-point line and he doesn't have the ball in his hands, or he's cutting to the basket, something like that, it's not a wasted play. Chris Paul can have the ball in his hands too. I don't know. I just think this is going to be, a lot of people, see the problem of having them together, and I think there is a problem, but I think Mike D'Antoni can handle it. I think they will be a decent team. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. And to tell you the truth, I want them to get the 5th seed because I want them to play the 4th seed, which I picked. But you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and put him at the 6th. And also they kept Eric Gordon, who's, obviously 6th man of the year. Them keeping him in that trade was huge, and I think that's going to make a big difference, him coming off the bench. And also, because of now having Chris Paul, they can have Chris Paul and James Harden in the game 100% of the time, stagger their minutes. There's always going to be a great guard who's a creator in the game. I think that's a big difference. Let's go ahead and talk about my number 5 team, who was my number 16, but I switched him around because I don't care, and I believe in these guys. It's the Denver Nuggets. Yes, the Denver Nuggets. Yes, Paul Millsap. Yes, Nikola Jokic. Yes, the best front court in the NBA. I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. That's kind of bold, but, I think it just needs to be said. I think the Nuggets are going to be a real shocker next year. Nikola Jokic, he can score, he can shoot, he can pass. Paul Millsap can score, he can shoot, he can pass. They're both dynamic. And then the Nuggets were kind of a bad team on defense last year, and Paul Millsap is a solid defender. And even though he's not like a lockdown guy, put him on anybody in the floor. He's not like a Draymond Green, but he does the same sort of thing. He can guard any position on the floor. He's just a real solid defender, and I think he's going to help them out on that end. And I think, they're just going to be the team to watch out for this next year. But I'm going to go ahead and, I realize I'm at 9 minutes of recording right now, so I'm going to go ahead and go to my number 4 team, which is the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the Thunder basically picked up Paul George for almost nothing this year. And they have Steven Adams, who's, I think he is just a great... Steven Adams, Enes Kanter, both... If you fusion them into one player, they would be like the best center in the NBA, but they're not. Enes Kanter is a good scorer. Steven Adams is great on defense. Obviously, the MVP, the absolute beast, Russell Westbrook. And then Paul George, I think he's going to fit in with Russell Westbrook well. Hopefully there's no personality clashes. I think they're going to play well together. I think it's going to be KD and Russell kind of toned down a little bit. And then if you think about it, KD and Russell never really played well together, even though they were great players. So I'm hoping Even though Paul George is obviously not as good of a player as KD is, I'm hoping that he can play better with Russ and that they're going to really be a force next year. And I'd like to see them get that 3rd seed so they can stay away from the Warriors. But, yeah, let's go ahead and talk about my number 3 team. Almost put these guys at 4. I really did. San Antonio Spurs. You want to know what's different from last year? Absolutely nothing. There's honestly nothing to talk about. Greg Pop is a really good guy, a really great coach. Kawhi Leonard's a beast. Manu Ginobili's 89 years old and he's a beast. What's his name? LaMarcus Aldridge kinda hasn't been great for the Spurs, but I still think he has potential to be because I think he's a good player. They're the same team they were last year. They may sign Derrick Rose, which I honestly think raises their stock a little bit, but not too much. But yeah, Spurs, they're still the Spurs. They're still going to have a lot of ball movement, that sort of thing. But first of all, I think this is very, very bold, and this team may end up being terrible next year. I don't know. Let's go ahead and talk about Tom Thibodeau's Minnesota Timberwolves. Yes, the T-Wolves, they have basically taken a not basically, they have taken a 31-51 team and added one player, and I think that's elevated them huge. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Starting point guard, Jeff Teague. They signed him this offseason. That was a big signing for them. He's going to be the secondary ball handler behind Jimmy Butler. You know, they have a lot of players who want the ball in their hand, but I think they can figure it out. Basically, Jeff Teague, he can dribble. You know, he wasn't great last year from shooting, and the Pacers actually had some problems with him because him and Paul George weren't playing well together because they just wanted the ball in their hands, but I think he probably has learned from that a little bit. They gave him a little bit more of the offensive load, but I think he can really fit in well here. I think George Hill would have been my first pick if I was the T-Wolves, but getting Jeff Teague, I guess probably honestly would have been my second pick out of the guards that were available, so not terrible. At the 2 spot, they do have Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Buckets, the man, the myth, the legend. Awesome defensive player, awesome offensive player. There's honestly not much to say about him. He's going to be the star player of their team. He's the veteran that these young guns, who are all young, good players, needed. Jimmy Buckets, he's going to get this 2nd seed. He's going to get a Western Conference Finals appearance on this team. Love Jimmy Butler. Great dude. At the 3, they have Andrew Wiggins. He's pretty good on offense, and you know, I think he's gonna have a good year. That's basically it. At the 4, they signed Taj Gibson. They have Gorgie Dang. Just basically, honestly, if you look at this lineup, they're gonna be a pretty tough team, like physically, like Taj Gibson, Jimmy Butler, Cat, Karl Anthony Towns. They're gonna be pretty tough. And Tom Thibodeau is a great defensive coach too. Basically, Karl Anthony Towns has become like a top 10 player in the NBA in his like first 2 or 3 years, so he's basically a beast. And that's the T-Wolves, basically a beast. Hopefully they can kind of get some bench players that can make a difference. I'm kind of looking, they don't really have any big difference maker off the bench. I think to look to in their signings or maybe through a trade, they kind of need to look for a 6th man. But number 1 team, Warriors, you know, what am I going to say? They're probably about to three-peat, sadly. I hate to say it. I don't think there's a team in the East or the West that can compete with them. They re-signed Andre Iguodala, who basically was their 6th man, a lot of firepower off the bench. I was hoping he would go somewhere else, which would make them worse. Got Nick Young. You know, Nick Young gets a ring. Good for him. Spaggy P. But yeah, that's my list. Kings, Jazz. Kings, Jazz, Rockets, Nuggets, OKC, Spurs, T-Wolves, and then the Warriors. Obviously, when the Western Conference when the season ends, I'm going to see how well I did. I'm going to do an Eastern Conference video soon, and you know, a lot of this is subject to change. Well, actually, no, not really, because there's not really very many big-name free agents left. But, you know, it is kind of subject to change because it's, you know, way, way too early to do this. But that's basically what it is.